Let's go overseas now, and divers have abandoned their search for bodies on the stricken cruise ship Costa Concordia, which of course capsized off the coast of Italy almost 3 weeks ago.
For more, we're joined by our Europe correspondent Philip Williams. Phil, there are still more than a dozen bodies on board the ship, aren't there?
Yes, they think 15 or 16 remain on board the ship below the waterline, and they've had to call it off because the scientists have set up their instruments and decided that the hull structure is simply too unstable. There have been several occasions when the ship has actually moved a little bit, but now they're worried it's simply too dangerous and they've called the whole thing off. So today's dive, unfortunately, was the very last, at least until they managed to find some other way of safely doing it. And that, of course, is very distressing news for those that are still waiting for news of the missing. And those relatives, some of them are on the island themselves, some of them are in different countries. Embassies have had to inform them. So not good news for them at all. But the company says it can't be helped that the people doing the search say it's unavoidable because the safety of the divers has to be paramount at this stage.
And has there been any reaction from those families?
Well, no, nothing yet directly from the families, but of course we can just anticipate exactly what they must be thinking. What reaction we have got is from lawyers representing some of the passengers that were on board, the survivors of those passengers, that are now seeking to sue the company, not just Costa Cruises, but also Carnival, the parent company, the large company that controls a lot of cruising companies around the world. And the two American law firms have now joined forces with an Italian consumer group, and they've got their forces together and are going to be pursuing this through the courts and be looking for as much money as possible. Here's what one of the American lawyers, Mitchell Proner, had to say.
They're trying to put all the blame on one simple captain. And the fact of the matter is, there's an old saying, a fish rots from the head down. They have to take corporate responsibility for what happened. This type of action doesn't happen because of the errors of one individual alone. There had to be controls in place. There had to be adequate training, adequate administration, adequate safeguards, so this type of tragedy doesn't ensue and won't ever ensue again. We think the offer is an insult for what these poor passengers went through. We think that the compensation being offered is not commensurate with the actions that were undertaken by not only Carnival, the mother company of the Costa Cruise Lines, but by Costa Cruise Lines as well. This was an intentionally reckless act, and they should have to pay in accordance with their conduct.
No doubt this tragedy is going to continue for some time, Phil. What about the ship itself? What happens to that now?
Well, the main focus now that we've called off the search, is to get the oil off. And there are 16 chambers that they're going to have to pierce. It's a very delicate operation, and then pump that oil out under warmth, under some temperature and pressure, so that if the ship does break up in situ, it doesn't become an environmental disaster. This is the secondary consideration, but now that they've called off that search is now the primary worry. After that, it's a very big question. Can they refloat it? Can they move it to an area where they can systematically then either repair the ship, which would seem unlikely, or to break it up for scrap? Or do they have to do what has happened with ships in the past? It has to be broken up exactly where it lies. If that happens, it's going to be a very expensive and a slow process. At the most optimistic forecast in that scenario is it would take some months. It could take years.
A lot still to play out off the coast of Italy. Thank you very much, Phil Williams.
Thank you.